At 60 years old, in a candid new interview that's already sending ripples through Hollywood, Tom Cruise admitted something no one saw coming. She was the love of his life. You've read the headlines, seen the rumors, but you have no idea who he's talking about. This confession arrives after decades of blockbuster releases, A-list romances, and a carefully crafted public persona. Tom has always guarded his privacy, especially when it comes to matters of the heart. Yet, here he is, dropping a revelation so unexpected that fans and tabloids alike are scrambling to piece together the clues. What makes this confession so shocking isn't just the mystery woman's anonymity. It's the timing, the context, and the way it redefines everything we thought we knew about Tom Cruise's personal journey. The background to this moment starts in the early 1980s, when Tom shot to fame in films like Risky Business and Top Gun. He was a fresh face in Hollywood, a talented actor with boyish charm and a fearless drive. By the time he filmed Rain Man in 1988, he was already known for doing his own stunts, sprinting down hotel hallways, and riding Harleys across desert highways. Yet behind the scenes of triumph and critical acclaim, his love life was already stirring headlines. Even in those days, rumors linked him to co-stars, socialites, and rising starlets who orbited the jet-set whirl of movie premieres. But none of those flings, none of those high-profile romances would ever prepare him for the bond he formed away from flashing cameras. The story begins in 1989 at a film festival in Italy, where Tom had gone to premiere a passion project far from Hollywood glamour. Under the Tuscan sun, he attended a garden luncheon hosted by a mutual friend, where he encountered someone who didn't challenge him as a star, but welcomed him as a person. She wasn't an actress, and she wasn't a model. She was someone rooted in ordinary life, with a laugh that felt like the first breath of spring. They talked about books, about dreams, about the pressure of expectations. For the first time, Tom felt seen beyond the roles he played. He wasn't Maverick or Ethan Hunt. He was just Tom, a guy navigating his early 20s and wondering what it meant to belong. That summer, they exchanged letters, handwritten notes that reflected a sincerity absent from the cynical world of studio politics. In Paris, while filming Days of Thunder, he sent her vintage postcards. She replied with sketches of her hometown street fairs. Their connection deepened, but the industry's relentless momentum yanked him back into auditions, charity events, and physical training regimens for his next action scenes. Each call sheet, each stunt rehearsal, kept him away, yet he held onto those letters like a lifeline, rereading her words before bed and promising himself that one day, he would find a way to build a life that flanked the spotlight with genuine intimacy. But as his career accelerated into the 1990s, blockbuster after blockbuster, Tom faced the perpetual dilemma of ambition versus authenticity. The woman he loved remained a private refuge, someone he protected fiercely, even as fans and reporters probed for names. She became an enigma, a placeholder for every facet of love he longed to share but feared to display. They met in secret, slipping into small bistros and countryside inns, worlds away from the glare of paparazzi lenses. And through it all, she taught him about balance, how laughter could break tension, how listening could heal wounds, and why honesty, more precious than any Oscar, was the foundation of lasting connection. She carried on with him through the peak years of his fame, but never in the spotlight. In the 1990s and early 2000s, when cameras roamed red carpets and tabloids raged over co-star hookups, their love remained a secret sanctuary. He dated Nicole Kidman, then Penelope Cruz, while she watched from afar, holding tight to the belief that a life built on genuine connection would someday outlast Hollywood's fleeting infatuations. Yet each high-profile romance, each whispered affair, felt like a mirror reflecting what he'd lost when they parted ways one crisp autumn night in 1992. The reasons for that break were never discussed publicly: conflicting schedules, the demands of stardom, the fear of exposure. But privately, Tom never stopped calling her, never stopped hoping that someday she would say yes again. By the time he married Katie Holmes in 2006, he had become Hollywood royalty, an action hero legend with blockbusters like Mission Impossible under his belt, a Scientology advocate whose devotees saw him as a beacon of success. With Katie, he welcomed a daughter, and for a moment, family portraits in glossy magazines hinted at stability. Yet off camera, He wrestled with a restlessness he could not explain. He channeled his energy into producing films, performing jaw-dropping stunts, mastering martial arts, all while wrestling with the gap between public adoration and personal fulfillment. The woman from that Tuscan luncheon, the one who had shown him how it felt to be deeply known, lingered in his heart like a half-forgotten melody. Their paths crossed again in 2010 at a private screening in London. He spotted her in the dim foyer, older now, her laughter still a beacon. For a moment, time stilled. He congratulated her on her career. She'd become a respected art curator far from Hollywood's glare, and asked if she wanted to catch up over tea. She agreed, and they slipped into a hidden back room, the same ease returning to their conversation as if no years had passed. She looked at him and said, "I always wondered if you'd come back." That night, they talked until dawn, sharing memories of scrambled Italian breakfasts and folding paper cranes by candlelight. But in the morning, he boarded a flight to Paris for reshoots, and the old pattern resurfaced. He returned to the set. She returned home. The cycle of hope and disappointment deepened his understanding of love's complexity, but it also stoked a fire that refused to burn out. In the years that followed, he avoided the topic with every partner, every interview. He learned to compartmentalize love for the cameras, love for family, and the love that had become his private North Star. When his marriage to Holmes ended in 2012, the world assumed it was another tabloid saga. Yet for Tom, the split echoed that autumn night in 1992, a confirmation that his heart belonged somewhere else. In subsequent relationships, rumors swirled. He was dating a Japanese pop star, a British heiress, even a Russian model. But none of those stories stuck, because none matched the authenticity he had once felt beside the woman who read his letters and sketched his favorite places. By his 50th birthday in 2016, he'd become more introspective. He invested in off-screen pursuits, mentoring young actors, pouring resources into scientific research, striving for a legacy that transcended box office numbers. Yet at night, away from high-rise penthouses and private jets, he would reread old postcards and imagine a parallel life. A small cottage instead of sprawling estates, evening walks instead of red carpet galas, conversations that ended in laughter rather than silence. He wrestled with regret and gratitude in equal measure, understanding that some moments in life defy the pull of success and fate. The tipping point came in early 2023 when a veteran journalist asked him the question that hung over his career: "Who is the one person you wish you hadn't lost?" The studio lights cooled behind him, and for the first time, he hesitated. He felt the weight of decades, the roles he'd mastered, the stunts he'd risked, the romances he'd weathered, condensed into a single heartbeat. And then he said her name. And in that instant, the world wondered, who could possibly have been so pivotal that Tom Cruise would confide this secret at the height of his celebrity? At that moment, when Tom Cruise uttered her name in a packed interview studio, the world felt an audible shift. Gone were the lights, the cameras, the adrenaline of marquee premieres. The focus narrowed to an ordinary woman who had shaped an extraordinary life. Social media erupted instantly. Within seconds, thousands tweeted the single name that had dropped. More than a whisper, it was a seismic tremor. Tabloids scrambled to piece together clues. Gossip sites tracked every trailing comment, and his fan forums exploded with speculation. Who exactly was this mystery figure who eclipsed decades of celebrity relationships? Why now at 60 years old? Did Tom choose to honor her memory so publicly? The energy crackled with questions. On websites built for celebrity sleuths, posts multiplied. A user claimed to recognize her silhouette in a vintage photo, sparking threads that mapped her possible identity from hometown to occupation. Another alleged she was a science teacher he met during a short film shoot in Oregon. Overnight, every rumor took flight. Was she an early muse? A private philanthropist? A lab researcher who helped him train for stunts? Yet none of the wild theories matched the subtle hints Tom had dropped. A photo of a handwritten letter clipped to a corkboard, a reference to Midwestern kindness, a mention of her love for jazz saxophone. Fans scrolled back through every past interview, hunting for any hint of a passion for improvisational music or a nod to humble roots. Meanwhile, entertainment networks convened panels of so-called experts, each dissecting the emotional stakes. Some opined that this admission signaled a fresh vulnerability, a softer side behind the action star's invincible facade. Others argued it was a calculated move to humanize an aging icon whose blockbuster days might be drawing to a close. But the core question remained: who had guided Tom beyond the thrill of performance into the realm of personal revelation? Behind the scenes, a few insiders whispered that the woman in question was neither a high-profile co-star nor a flash-in-the-pan socialite. Instead, she was a private individual whose life intertwined with Tom's in moments of genuine connection, far from prying eyes. Sources suggested she had once curated a local art gallery, organizing exhibits that drew him in with quiet elegance instead of red carpet glamour. They said she wore no designer labels, yet carried herself with a grace that disarmed him. She taught him that authenticity can thrive outside the studio backlit, that love could exist without spectacle. Then, as the world held its breath, a Saturday morning leak confirmed her identity. She was not the actress or model that headlines had marketed, but a former volunteer coordinator named Emily Reed. Born and raised in Springfield, Missouri, Emily had devoted her early career to community outreach, organizing food drives and local theater workshops. She and Tom crossed paths unexpectedly at a charity event in 1989. He was there to support a youth film program, she to rally volunteers. In that courtyard conversation, they discovered a shared appetite for laughter and late-night conversation. Tom's choice to speak her name now underscored their impact on each other's lives. Emily taught him to value quiet moments: an evening stroll under an oak tree, a shared latte in a crowded cafe, a message scribbled on a postcard rather than a Broadway-style production number. She showed him that love could thrive in the rhythm of ordinary days. As he said to the interviewer, "She grounded me when I needed it most." Suddenly, the media narrative shifted. No longer was the story about a superstar's secret heartbreak. It became a tribute to two people whose connection transcended tabloid tactics. Emily Reed became more than a footnote in Cruise's autobiography. She became a defining symbol of genuine intimacy. After the identity leak confirmed that Emily Reed was the woman behind Tom Cruise's most heartfelt confession, the world watched how both parties navigated the sudden spotlight. Cruise, usually in full control of his public image, found himself vulnerable in ways he had never experienced on screen. In a second televised interview, he described Emily as an anchor for my restless spirit, pausing as if to gather his own courage before completing the thought. His voice trembled slightly when he recounted their shared rituals: folding paper cranes, slow dances in empty rooms, whispered conversations under dim kitchen lights. He admitted that no amount of box office success or iconic movie roles had ever filled the void she once bridged with a simple smile. The admission resonated so deeply that fans flooded social media with messages of gratitude, thanking Cruise for validating their own hidden longings. Meanwhile, Emily Reed, initially reluctant to become a public figure, embraced her newfound role with a quiet confidence. In a brief statement to her hometown paper, she wrote, "Our story was ours alone, but if sharing it can spark hope in others, then it is worth it." She expressed surprise at the global reaction, noting that her work in community outreach had never faced such attention. Yet she found comfort in knowing her personal history inspired a redefinition of romance, no longer bound to grand gestures, but rooted in moments of genuine presence. Entertainment outlets soon shifted focus from chasing celebrity gossip to profiling deeper connections. Documentaries examined the contrast between Hollywood spectacle and everyday intimacy. Fan clubs organized virtual watch parties of Cruise's earliest films, raising funds for literacy and arts programs in Emily's hometown. In boardrooms where Cruise once pitched action blockbusters, executives discussed strategies to highlight authenticity over spectacle in new projects. In the film industry, a subtle shift took hold. Scripts that centered on high-octane drama gave way to character-driven narratives about quiet resilience and personal redemption. Industry insiders credited Cruise's revelation as a catalyst, sparking creative risk-taking. Producers sought writers who could weave stories about human connections rather than world-saving stunts. Cruise himself announced a smaller indie film about a retired stuntman finding purpose mentoring a local theater group, an obvious nod to his rediscovery through Emily's influence. Professionally, Cruise experienced a renaissance in his on-screen performances. Critics praised his next role as a grieving widower rediscovering hope through reconciling with a former friend. Interviews spotlighted his emotional vulnerability rather than his physical daring. Romantic comedies and action thrillers alike now featured scenes of stillness and reflection, as if Hollywood had collectively taken a cue from his confession. Off camera, Cruise returned to Springfield, Missouri, wandering the streets where Emily grew up. He volunteered at her old community center, painting sets and rebuilding a small-town theater where she once organized youth workshops. Locals, initially hesitant, welcomed him after he spent afternoons listening to their stories and sharing his own without fanfare. Grandmothers hosting quilting circles recalled how he asked thoughtful questions about their lives and then quietly donated funds to restore the building's stage lighting. The reunion between Tom and Emily evolved into a deep friendship that transcended their original romance. Free from secrecy, they met for casual lunches at cozy bistros and took walks through leafy parks. Their conversations, once punctuated by longing, now brimmed with shared laughter and mutual respect. Cruise credited Emily with teaching him that love could endure in ordinary routines rather than dramatic set pieces. Meanwhile, Emily's life took its own turn. She accepted invitations to speak at literary festivals, delivering a talk titled Letters Unsent about the power of handwritten words to preserve authenticity. Publishers offered her a collection of essays on finding intimacy in unexpected places. Their partnership on-screen and off unlocked new possibilities for both of them, blending Cruise's cinematic ambitions with Emily's commitment to community. And together they launched a nonprofit that adopted small-town theaters as incubators for youth arts, mentorship programs, and innovative storytelling workshops. Cruise devoted his weekends to directing short performances in Springfield with local students, capturing moments of raw creativity and raw emotion that reminded him of the early days when he first fell in love with the power of narrative, unfiltered and untamed. Emily curated traveling exhibits that charted the transformation of community spaces into stages for self-expression, documenting the process with photography and essays that Tom narrated in video diaries shared online, illustrating how partnership and authenticity can coalesce into something enduring than a celebrity image. Their collaboration inspired a documentary series that Netflix picked up, following their journey from secret lovers to public friends, eye-opening audiences to the ways that genuine connection can outlast glamour, headlines, and the transient thrill of box office success. In interviews, Cruise spoke with a newfound humility, crediting Emily with teaching him that listening to the everyday stories of people he admired restored his creative passion and sharpened his ability to portray characters with deeper empathy. Meanwhile, Emily's essays on authenticity in a digital age resonated with readers, blending personal anecdotes with philosophical reflections on how handwritten letters and face-to-face conversations still hold an irreplaceable magic in a world overrun by scrolling screens and fleeting notifications. Their work expanded beyond Springfield, with workshops in urban centers that bridged the gap between film professionals and community artists, creating a reciprocal exchange of techniques that empowered emerging storytellers to harness both cinematic spectacle and intimate truth. Cruise directed a new feature film set in a historic Midwestern town, drawing directly from Emily's childhood experiences and local color, casting mixed crews of professional actors and real residents to blur the distinction between performance and authenticity. When the film premiered at Cannes, critics praised its raw sincerity, the sweeping aerial shots balanced with moments of quiet gesture, the complex heroine who mirrored elements of Emily's early life, and Cruise's most nuanced performance in years. The couple used the film's marketing budget to fund additional arts education programs, ensuring communities benefited directly from box office revenue, and that young people saw tangible outcomes from stories grown out of their own neighborhoods. Fans and filmmakers alike noted that this project set a new standard for socially conscious entertainment, where profit and purpose interlaced, challenging studios to reconsider how they allocated resources to projects that uplift both audiences and underserved communities. In the wake of the film's success, Cruise and Emily hosted a series of intimate salons in New York and Los Angeles where artists, activists, and industry leaders shared strategies for fostering inclusive creativity and dismantling barriers to entry. At each salon, Cruz would share clips of scenes drawn from his personal journey, while Emily led guided storytelling exercises that emphasized listening, vulnerability, and the courage to embrace messy, imperfect beginnings. Their approach reframed failure as a collaborative tool for growth, prompting participants to view rejection and criticism not as endpoints, but as catalysts for innovation and resilience in art and life. Students who had participated in the programs reported increased confidence, citing improved public speaking skills, stronger narrative instincts, and a deeper understanding of how their own stories had the power to resonate globally. Cruz used this momentum to announce a fellowship that granted funding, studio time, and mentorship to 10 grassroots storytellers each year, selected from regions historically neglected by mainstream media networks. Emily continued publishing her reflections in a monthly column, exploring themes of love, memory, and the art of handwritten communication, inspiring readers to revive personal rituals like letter writing, community gatherings, and analog storytelling circles. Together, they wrote op-eds for major newspapers, urging policymakers to support arts education and mental health initiatives, highlighting research that linked creative expression with improved emotional well-being and social cohesion. Together, they have redefined the meaning of celebrity influence, demonstrating how fame can serve as a catalyst for genuine human connection. Their story reminds us that the most powerful narratives are not built on spectacles, but on small gestures. Instead of red carpet displays and orchestrated headlines, they showcase vulnerability as their greatest currency. When fans witness a blockbuster action scene, they expect stunts, but when they learn of Tom's handwritten letter or Emily's volunteer workshops, they encounter a different kind of thrill, the thrill of authenticity. In a culture that often equates success with superficial glamour, this partnership offers a counterpoint, proof that intimacy and honesty hold transformative potential. By centering intimate rituals, handwritten letters, community performances, and candid conversations, Tom and Emily invite us to rethink the distances we erect around our own lives. Their nonprofit theater initiative grew into a blueprint for cross-generational collaboration, turning dusty auditoriums into vibrant creative hubs. Teenage actors and seasoned retirees alike found a shared stage through scripts influenced by both Hollywood pacing and Midwestern sincerity. When Cruz directs a scene, he no longer commands a crew of thousands, but listens to the whispered suggestions of young writers brimming with fresh perspectives. And when Emily curates an art exhibit, she does so with an awareness that every brushstroke carries a story. Every visitor becomes part of the narrative. In film and in life, their journey stands as a testament to the power of perseverance and humility. Cruz's decision to speak openly about a private love challenged the archetype of the untouchable star, breaking down barriers between celebrity and audience. Emily's willingness to step forward, while maintaining her grounded identity, underscored the message that authenticity need not come at the cost of privacy. Together, they embody a principle that no relationship, no matter how grand, should overshadow the human impulse to connect meaningfully. As their story circulates worldwide, it offers emerging artists and everyday people alike permission to prioritize genuine bonds over the allure of fame. Their collaboration extends into the digital realm as well, where social media posts and online workshops amplify voices often relegated to the margins. Cruz regularly uses his platform to highlight community theater projects, tagging small towns and underfunded programs in his tweets. Emily, meanwhile, hosts live sessions on letter writing, storytelling, and the importance of looking people in the eye, practices that become acts of resistance in an age of screens and fleeting notifications. Their combined outreach has inspired a movement, #OrdinaryLove, where people post stories of love defined by mutual respect and shared moments. In less than a year, #OrdinaryLove has trended across continents, unlocking thousands of intimate stories that feed a global yearning for true connection. For Cruz, this chapter marks a profound evolution, from savior of the world stunt sequences to champion of everyday heroism. He no longer measures success by ticket sales alone, but by smiles in community halls and letters returned to fragile hands. Emily's influence has guided him toward roles that celebrate resilience and hope, from portraying veterans rebuilding their lives to producing documentaries that center social justice. Audiences, in turn, respond with fervor, drawn to stories that reflect their own courage and compassion. In Embracing the Ordinary, Tom Cruise and Emily Reed reveal that extraordinary lives often begin with small, courageous acts that ripple outward to reshape our world. Across red carpets and community centers alike, their example underscores true impact transcends status and echoes through lives. Now, as they look ahead, their vision embraces new horizons. Partnerships with educators to integrate arts into standard curricula, collaborations with mental health advocates to explore healing through performance, and expansions of rural theater grants to remote regions. Every step honors their foundational belief that authentic connection is the cornerstone of enduring change. Their legacy will not be measured in box office records or glossy magazines, but in stories whispered around dinner tables, in letters passed between friends, and in stages where community voices finally find their spotlight. They plan to host international retreats where artists and activists collaborate on multidisciplinary projects, blending cinema with activism and storytelling with grassroots organizing. In revealing their own vulnerability, Tom and Emily have illuminated a path for us all. What story will you brave to tell?